Phil Rivers, the man.
What up?
Welcome to the It's Not That Deep podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Man, thank you for having me. I'm in your city right now. We're in New York. It's my first podcast here, first time being here since I was a kid. But I'm just so excited to be sitting with you, man. A friend, a client. I consider a mentor and a brother. Dude, let's dive in. I need to hear about your story, man. We need to talk about, first of all, how would you identify yourself? An email marketer, a TikTok wizard? What are you?
I'm definitely not a TikTok wizard yet. That's why I hire you guys for the tutelage. For me, I would say I'm just a businessman. Like, I came up marketing and doing email, and that's what I still do, but much more now transitioned from being an email marketer to like operating and growing the business, which is just an entirely different set of skills that I had to learn because there's no guidebook to this shit. But so still a marketer, just not as like purebred email exclusively. Now a lot more focused on just building the business, operations, fulfillment, cash flow, growth, all of those things.
Yeah, kind of overseeing it from outside, not being inside the business as much. But
or like backing out piece by piece,
Yeah, zooming out, bird's eye view of the business, making the big strategic decisions that make, 7+ figures.
Trying to.
Awesome, man. But before even the business though, let's dive into it, man. You come from a sports background. Talk to us about that a little bit.
I mean, I grew up playing ball. Played in high school. I wasn't like set the world on fire, the best player you ever seen, but I just like loved the game. And where I went to school, it like wasn't a sports school, and especially like wasn't a baseball school. And so we were sort of like just the redheaded stepchild program of the school. But me and two other guys were like the good players, and there was everyone else. Like we took it just much more seriously. At the time, dude, I had the shittiest grades. I just like had to have a B average so I could drive my car. That was like the requirement by my dad, but I didn't even technically have a B average. I just finessed math and decimal points to make it look like I had a B average to him. I don't even know how I pulled this off because he's a pretty smart dude. Anyways, then after high school, I was like, I still wanted to play. I didn't want to give up on the dream, and I wasn't realistic enough at the time to know that like there's no future for me in this, right? I was still just like wanted it. Yeah. And so I had the option. I can go to like a D2 or 3 school to play, or I can go JC, junior college, and play there. And in California, where I grew up, JC is very competitive baseball, arguably definitely more competitive than a D2 or 3, just because a lot of guys, they're not big enough or whatever to get drafted, so they'll go play JC for a year, 2 years, then get drafted and go. And so at the time, I didn't know what my limitations were and stuff, or I just wasn't that realistic about it. So I went to JC. My first year, we were the worst team in California. We literally had one win. It was embarrassing. And then the next year, we got a new coach. A bunch of players that from other programs came to our school with the new coach, and we were like 2 wins away from being state champs.
Okay.
So it was like black and white, like difference, right? Over like literally in less than a year.
Night and day.
I didn't play as much on the second team, because there were guys better than me, and then it became apparent like I'm at the tail end. I'm on the off ramp to my playing career, unless I just want to keep it going because I like the game. But I was never going to get paid to do this, and so I just lived in the moment, dude. Just like when you're winning, it's hard to be sour, So I didn't even really care. I wasn't getting as much PT as before. I was just like, yo, I want to win. The vibe is ill, and I was just all in on the ride. And after that, I was just like, I could have gone and tried to walk on at a 4-year after, but I was like, that would have been D1. I don't even know if I could have made it, first of all. But then I was like, if making the commitment at D1 is a whole different, it's not playing JC baseball anymore. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to dedicate my whole life, day in and day out, to this team where I walk on and sit on the bench, and it was not even a good team, and be losing. I was just like, this is the end of the line, and I hung them up, and I haven't honestly picked up a baseball since my last game.
Damn.
Yeah. And that was in 2005.
So Phil, that's really interesting, man. For you, sports was a big part growing up, but you always kind of knew in the back of your head, like, this is not a forever thing. I'm JUCO right now, and this is dope, that I'm having fun, but like, it's either I can be, kind of average at a really high level, or I can be really good at a lower level Was that kind of the vibe, and then you just kind of
I was just like, I was at the end of the road. I kind of just like figured it out.
yeah.
And it was just like it happens for most people that play any sport. Like, dude, some crazy stat is like only 5% of kids that play a sport in high school play after high school competitively.
That's wild.
And
So
so, like,
I mean, that's me. I only played football growing up, and like all growing up, but into high school, but never past that.
Right, and so most kids never play after. So it was already like kind of elite, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And it was just like, the writing's on the wall. I'm only 6 feet. I only throw 88. It's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a dime a dozen. Let's move on. Accept it. Keep it moving.
So what was next, man?
So I went to school, in San Diego, and I was just like a kid living. I had a couple side hustles here and there.
What were you studying?
Business. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I think it's really actually like our whole system is screwed up with education because like what 18-year-old kid knows what they want to do when they're 50? Like, you don't.
No fucking clue.
So I just like business 'cause it was broad and
Same here.
I was always like entrepreneurial, but the classroom is not where I flourish.
It's so funny, man. Business school like actually taught me nothing about business.
Very
Like,
little.
I look back and I think of those times. Like, if anything, it taught me how to party, which is good for business. But
Well, I think what I got really good at is playing the game to get whatever bullshit mark to get out of the stupid class. So I just got really good at plagiarism, quite honestly.
I got good at being friends with nerds. Like, and I just make sure that hey, this assignment, like, can you help me out real quick? I just don't know.
I just did it. I just plagiarized the whole thing. I got really good at that, dude.
Hey, man, but like looking at kind of what you do now, it's not like it's plagiarism, but like copywriting and email marketing and stuff like that, it is borrowing from what's worked, right? And using that and simplifying it and putting that message out there. We'll dive a little bit more into that, but I do want to kind of continue. So from that, like, university,
San Diego State.
San Diego State, from there, you're studying business. Where's your? Like,
I was just chilling, living, just being a kid, out of the house, no parent supervision, just like do what I want, be a young adult, fuck up, work. And so when I was at school, so I lived in this house because I went there, in my third year. So I moved into this house. There was a room. This guy, there was an ad for Craigslist for a roommate. This dude answered it. His name was Doug. I never met him, but we became like fast friends. And he's very creative and artistic and business oriented, but very creative when I'm not. And so he would, this is like my first like real sort of venture. He was designing T-shirts and selling them on message boards, and I was like, dude, like, let's just try and like make this more legit than obscurely just selling a random design on NikeTalk.com. And so then we started designing. We conceptualized the idea to design T-shirts that coincided with the releases of Nike shoes, Nike Dunks at the time. No Nike marks or anything like that. Just overall things that were fashionable at the time that would come out.
This will go with it. Yeah.
And we'd sell them on message boards. And so we built like an email list and would transact on PayPal. It was very like Web 1.0, not sexy, not scalable. But at the time, the internet was mad different, and it just like it worked. So, and then that's just like parlayed into like a brand that we coined. We called 24K Gold, which I think is a pretty sick name.
That is a pretty sick name.
And we didn't know anything about anything really, and we didn't have the internet like we have it now. And so what we did, we got a bunch of designs printed up from a screen printer, went to all these street shops in Southern California with a box, showing them our tees, like, do you want to buy them? And we got pretty successful. I think we were ultimately in like 25 stores throughout California, all just from blood, sweat, tears, carrying a cardboard box around. No like real sales process and stuff like that. And we were getting reorders. And like, again, this is the really early days of e-com, so that was like hit or miss. We were really just like straight retail, going to like trade shows and stuff like that. So it like became something, but literally by accident.
Yeah.
And then like after school, he left a semester before I did, and it was just like sort of fizzled out. Okay. Again, like we weren't really like, we didn't know.
Serious about it.
Well, we didn't know anything. And so like we didn't know what the next move was. So it was sort of just like, life did its thing, and the brand just fizzled out. I still talk to Doug all the time. We're boys, and we always reminisce like, what could have been.
What could have been with 24K, man.
But so it was a good learning experience. But that's how I got my start marketing, especially with email, just because at the time that's all you could do.
Yeah. Interesting, man. So I actually did not.
That's on my dinosaur on the internet, dude.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I think you know this stuff. You're OG pure. If anyone.
When people DM me on Twitter, they're like, how long have you been emailing for? I'm like, oh, since like '06.
Yeah.
They're like, what? I was born in 2000.
That's crazy, man. That is crazy. That's such a cool story for me to hear because it kind of shows that like you had this itch. You did have like the entrepreneurial itch, but you had enough like, foresight to kind of see like, hey man, like there's no like blueprint for this like there is now, right? For people like there's
Like I would talk
courses and
I would talk to people like that I would somehow get in like finesse a call with them like they've worked at Quicksilver or some shit. That's much bigger than what we were doing, but it was so where they were and where we were was so disconnected that it was like, yeah, there was value in it, but at the again, I was so young and inexperienced, I didn't know how to even read between the lines at the time to get the nuggets that were maybe they were there, maybe they weren't, to parlay it into our stuff. So it's just like you take swings and it's just the way it goes.
So what was next after that, man? What led you into like was that the thing that made you kind of interested in e-com, or were you working a job? Like what were you doing at this time now?
So that was like the first like I don't know if it's forte is the right word, into like the digital stuff. Everything else.
Foray.
Foray. Anyways.
Yeah, I think that's the word. Anyway.
The fuck. And so then I would just I would do stuff online, e-com stores, but it'd be like little shit here and there. But really, again, like this is 06, 07, 08. The world was so different. And so like I would have like little hustles, but I would say my worldview was like limited in terms of what was possible. And so I think I was just like maybe just a victim of like not knowing where to go to get information, or maybe like not being curious enough. Like entrepreneurship now on the internet it permeates everywhere. At the time, it was just like I was young, I was inexperienced in life, and I didn't know myself that well. I'm 22 years old, right? And so like I have all the influences of like older people, like my parents or former bosses. Then I have like my loser friends that most of them aren't doing shit, right? And some are rich kids, some aren't, but they're not really driven. And I always felt like this isn't the place for me, but I couldn't verbalize it, and I also wasn't mature enough or self-aware enough at the time to be like, this is what I'm really drawn to, or this is what I like, and go seek out that information on the internet or from a person to like keep it moving. So I think it was just sort of like, in retrospect, like stuck. Like my parents, authority figures tell me do X, Y, Z. All my loser friends aren't doing shit, but I want to be cool because I'm like young and I want to have a good time, but I'm not fulfilled when I'm doing those things. But I also know that what my parents are telling me or the authority figures like is not what I'm drawn to either. And it was just like, you hear these stories now about like in school and stuff, you're trained to go to school, get good grades, get a job, and like that's what is like pushed on you. And I could like even now thinking about it, like it's like palpable, I can feel it. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't want to do that, but I also don't want to do nothing like my friends. So I was like stuck.
Kind of like in limbo a little bit. Like you don't belong to this group right here, which is doing the safe, getting to 9 to 5 and just whatever. But then you're also not just smoking weed on a couch,
wasting time. Right. And then I was like, and I had jobs and stuff like that. Like I was into startups, so I worked at some startups. I always had my side hustles, like either legitimate or illegitimate, if you know what I mean. But I was like, again, like at the time, I was like, yo, I want to be a part of a startup because I get equity, and then it goes public or it sells and I cash out. But then, and that's not really how it virtually ever happens. But when you're 22 years old, you don't know that. You read TechCrunch and it's romanticized. You think like, oh, I'm going to be straight in 4 years. Right? And so I did that. I tried to play that game, but I was like, and it took a while, some experience and getting kicked in the shins and like just maturation as a person for me to be like, this isn't for me either. Like this is just a job. I'm not ever going to get shit from this. So ultimately, I went to 4 cities. I was like, I know I can't live in LA anymore. Like, I'm just like trapped, right? And if I don't get out now, I don't know if I ever will. So I went to Seattle, Washington, Austin, Texas, New York City, 3 cities, and New York City. I knew I wanted to leave California, so I didn't go to SF because I was still into startup shit at the time. And then Seattle just wasn't for me, too granola. Austin was like just too hot, but it's not the Austin that we have now because this was in like 2011.
Right.
And I came to New York, and I was like, yo, if I don't go to New York now, I'll probably never do it, and I'll hate myself when I'm 40.
What was it about New York that
just the action
gravitated towards?
The action.
The action.
I didn't know a soul. I didn't know a soul any place.
You hadn't been here before?
When I was like 18 with my mom, that doesn't count.
That doesn't count, yeah.
Right? But I didn't know, when I came here, I didn't know anyone, so I was just like fish out of water, but it's still like New York.
Nice.
And I was like, so I went to all 3 places. Seattle was disqualified, Austin disqualified, so it was like I go to New York or I stay in LA. Went back to LA, sold everything, moved to New York. No job, no, I was so poor, dude. I was so fucking poor. I had like no money, and just like figured it out.
Dude, I love that story, man, because like I can relate in so many kind of
Yeah, because you did the Columbia and shit.
Exactly, like, but I was working this job and like while building this thing, and back in November, finally decided to rip that Band-Aid off. And I have a house. Like I bought a house. Like what kind of idiot? I don't know why I did that.
Because they told you.
Yeah, exactly. I did the right thing. It's like, oh yeah.
Stay away from they.
Yeah, exactly, 100%, dude. We're gonna dive into that a little bit. But basically, like for me, then it was okay. Pack my shit and do it 1 bag down to Colombia, and that gave me kind of the time and space to breathe, to realize that like, okay, what do I really want, and like what's next, because I've always wanted to be able to travel, build my business, do these kinds of things, and I haven't gravitated towards just like one city, but like just kind of being able to go wherever, whenever. That's been really important for me. So I found that really interesting that you kind of, that's one thing that I do find pretty common with a lot of successful entrepreneurs, is there's that phase where it's like you just got to take a leap. That was kind
of. My mom was like, what if it doesn't work out? I was like, I don't know, I'll fucking come back to this shithole.
Exactly.
Like, what's the worst? I'm not going to die.
Exactly. So we always make a way bigger deal out of it, like, oh, it's such a big risk, but it's like, dude, I have a basement in my parents' house if everything goes to shit.
I was 23 and I have nothing, Mom. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that, man. And so talk me through New York. What were you doing here, and then kind of what was your
So like, I had no money and shit. Somehow someone rented. So I commented, one of my buddies that like I love to death. I like persuaded him to come here also, and so he came with me. So I had someone here, but no one that knew New York, right? So, but at least I had a compatriot. So I wasn't entirely solo. But someone rented us an apartment. We finessed it, just like classic New York story. It was like a loft. There wasn't even real walls inside, but it was like quintessential New York apartment for like a young person. Anyway, so like when I first got here, I was like, I got settled. I like crushed all seasons of Sopranos in like 2 weeks, and then I was like, all right, now I got to get to real life. So like I was still into startups at the time because I hadn't learned the lesson of everyone gets fucked for the most part. So I got some job at some software. I was really into software as a service at the time, like the concept of it.
Yeah.
I got this job at one. I made no money, dude. It was like $40K a year. That was like barely. I was like budgeting to the penny, like for groceries and all that stuff, dude. And I was there for like a year, but also like at the time I was like growing up, maturing and stuff, and I realized like, I have a real contempt for authority, especially when authority is arbitrary. Yeah. And so like I had this boss, but she'd have all these requirements that didn't make any sense, and you question them, it's like, why are you questioning? And so I was like, this is not for me. And so at the time, like I didn't have any hustle going at that time, so some other software company like poached me, and I was been like the number 3 employee, and I was like, like at this time it either happens or it doesn't, right? And so while I was there, it was just like, like the founder lived somewhere else, and I just had a lot of freedom. So I got really good at like, I'll come in, I'll do my work for 3 or 4 hours, then the rest of the day I'll do whatever the hell I want. It could just be bullshit around New York, do work on my side hustle or whatever. So a buddy of mine and I started this bracelet company, and it was pretty much just like costume jewelry. And we took like Cartier bracelets and made them out of rubber, and they sold like hotcakes. And we made videos about this. And again, e-com, this was a long time ago, e-com, right? 2013. And so
Wild West almost.
Yeah.
It was a different game.
Instagram, right? Like I don't even think there were DMs yet.
No, I think that was the time where you could post a picture of your dinner and it gets 12,000 likes.
It was crazy. So like that started to get heat, and then Cartier sent us a C&D because we were using their mark admittedly at the time. And so we just changed it to what mark they didn't own, which was theirs is like a flathead screwdriver, and we changed it to Phillips head. Like we're good. And we rode that for a while, like a year, 18 months. And we came up with some other designs, some influenced by some of their pieces. But again, everything we do is out of rubber. Like there's no one's not.
It's not
buying,
a Cartier
no
bracelet.
one's not buying the real shit because they can buy the rubber version.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This was for like.
You're not really competition.
No, this is for like streetwear kids that read Hypebeast.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And so, ultimately, we got another C&D on some like bullshit.
Okay.
They were just like wanted the store to be gone, and I get it, but like we weren't infringing on their mark, and the stuff that they pulled, they were like, they cited some like laws in these obscure like Eastern European countries where we didn't have one sale, like we've never sold there once, and it was just like a scare tactic thing. We wrote back, and it went away. They just like stopped because they had no basis, and then ultimately they got mad smart and they sent a C&D to Shopify, and Shopify took the products down without even hitting us on Black Friday.
Damn.
Yeah.
On Black Friday. That was supposed to be the payday, bro. That was supposed to pay for the rest of your year.
And my partner and I at the time were like, we're so sick of dealing with this, that either we stop selling these SKUs altogether, but that like the whole brand was those SKUs.
I didn't know that Shopify could just shut you down like that.
Well, they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so, like, their lawyers got smart. Shopify like just didn't want to be in the middle, and so at that point we were already like, yo, this is getting annoying. Let's just get through this Black Friday and be done with it. And we didn't even get the chance to get through Black Friday. So, and that's why like we make these videos. People comment like, why would you do that? Why don't you do X, Y, Z? And we were just like so tired of getting kicked in the shins. We were just like, screw it, we'll move on.
But that's like the whole sunk cost thing, right? It's like people are like, well, no, but like all you have to do is this, that. But you don't know.
You're not there.
Yeah,
you haven't been doing it for like 2 years.
It's exhausting. Like, you're just fighting this thing, and they keep finding.
Well, they have all the resources. We have no resources.
Exactly, and you guys just trying to make a couple bucks, just to, like make it in New York.
We're just like trying to be kids, have our e-com thing, stack chips, and who knows, you know. So that was the end of that. And then when I was at the second software company, I was like started doing agency stuff, some web design, some email, some paid ads, and I was pretty much just like arbing stuff, right? Like, with the exception of the email that I would fulfill on, I would like sell it in and get someone to do the work, and it was like a fine little like side hustle. Ultimately, I was like mad comfortable at the software company, and I had my side thing. Yeah. But ultimately, like I stayed there 2 years too long. Like I was not fulfilled. I was bored. I was again tired of having a boss that had put all these like arbitrary rules in place for no reason, and so like. But I was comfortable because I had the agency thing, I had the salary, and I was just like young, living in New York, chopping it up. And so I wasted 2 years of like being actually productive just because I was comfortable. And a lot of people get trapped in that. And so then at the time it came like the chapter 2 of like a time to take a leap. And I'm like, yo, mom, I'm gonna leave. Oh, what if it doesn't work? Blah, blah, blah. The whole thing all over again applied to this new thing. And ultimately I just like, I was out, all my shares vested and everything, with the software company. I was like, it's time to make a change. I'm fucking miserable. And I just went all in at the time, all in on the agency, still doing a bunch of stuff like web design and email and ads. But again, like I didn't know at the time about offers or positioning or marketing.
Like it was just like freelance type.
Kind of, yeah. It was very like,
I'll just take a contract. You need a website, I'll get it done.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there was no consistency, there was no branding, there was no funnel, and so it was just like having a lot of components to like just generate cash. Yeah. And then I was like, this is not a business. This is just like me I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah. And so what I did was I cut everything that wasn't email because that's what I had the most confidence in. And at the time, I didn't think about like, whatever I choose to offer, I'll just find someone to fulfill it. I wasn't even thinking that sophisticated. I was just like, I'm gonna do it, right? And so I didn't want any employees at the time. I just want this to be me. I don't want to deal with people. And so ultimately, in retro, like, it was limiting belief. And so I started getting some clients. I was doing cold outreach, just like hustling to get clients. And I got to like 10 or 12K a month. And I was doing everything: the marketing, the selling, the fulfilling. Then I was like, okay, now I just have like a new job where I don't have one boss, I have like 4 bosses that are the clients. And if one leaves, I'm like fucked. Yeah. And so I was like, now I see why you have employees, right? And so at the time, I was like, I'm all in on I'm committed to the email piece of it. And I was like, I need to, like, I don't know how to get to the next step,
Okay.
right? Like, they don't teach this shit in school, which they should. And so I was trapped, like doing 10, 12K. I'm like, fuck, what do I do? So I jumped in.
That's a scary place to be for just one person because, like you said, you're kind of a slave to these people.
But I also had a nice quality of life because I was making 12K a month.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't spend that much money. But now that my wife spends all the money now,
But you also, it's so risky because you don't want to lose
Exactly.
1 or 2 clients. So you're like, oh, well, I need more.
Exactly.
But how are you going to get
How you gonna market, sell, and fulfill them?
Yeah.
So then at the time, I realized like I have like a low ceiling, and I don't know what I don't know, but I know that I don't know a lot. And so I was like looking for something. I've been on this list for Traffic and Funnels Mastermind for a while. So I booked a call with them.
Cool.
And
You've been consuming, you read all the books. You
no, there were no books at the time.
Oh, they didn't have any. It was just Traffic and Funnels. Dude, this is before.
This is like 2018.
Yeah, okay.
And so they might have had one book, but I don't know if I didn't know about it at the time. So I got on the call with one of their sales guys or whatever, going through it, and I knew I needed something. I just didn't know what it was. And the sales guy was Cole Gordon. He's like big in the sales game now. And I'd never been on the phone to buy anything ever, let alone high ticket. So we get to it, and I had a couple, I've been shopping around for maybe a couple weeks. Like, no, I need something, but I couldn't verbalize it. Anyway, so Cole, he made the offer, and then I was like so scared, dude. He's 10K or 9,800, and I was so scared to like buy it, period, let alone on the spot.
Yeah.
Like, don't spend money like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I got to talk to my accountant because it was like tax time. I was like, I didn't talk to my accountant. Like, we talk later, and I didn't have to. I was just like so shook to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so he's like, all right, I'm gonna call you at 4. Is that cool? I was like, yeah. I was like, fuck, dude. Like, and then I was just like the whole day pacing, like, it's almost 4. It's almost 4. And then he calls, like, I can't not answer the phone and like bitch out. You know what I mean? And so ultimately I jumped in at the time. So scary. And I remember like later at night at dinner telling my girlfriend, I was like, yo, I just dropped 10 G's today. And she's like, on what? And I told her, she's like, you don't usually do that. So you must have like some level of conviction if you did it. And so she's like, it'll be fine. And so anyways, that's like, after I jumped in there, it changed everything. Because then I got the education or the tutelage to like, this is how you structure an offer. This is how you position it in the market. This is how you sell. Because I never had any formal sales training. And it really just helped me like work on conceptualize and install those pieces. And then once I started getting a little bit more volume, then the first thing I focused on, and again, advised this by them at the time, which I would have figured out ultimately, but not as quickly, was get someone to help with the fulfillment so I can focus on generating the opportunity volume and closing the volume. And then that's really when things turned a corner and they became like an actual real agency business at the time.
That's an amazing story, man. I'm just so fired up to hear it because there's so many things in there that I could kind of go, and there's so many directions I could take this right now. But I do think that when you're kind of early in your business journey, when you don't even know what you don't know, but you know that you don't know stuff, like you said there, investing in coaching and courses and stuff, and actually taking that stuff and applying it to your business. Because that's the thing that a lot of people don't do. They'll get the initial dopamine hit of like, oh, I just spent 10 grand, like, oh, this is great. But then
they don't do shit.
Actually do shit, right? Because it's like, you can kind of trick your brain into thinking you did something by making an investment, right? But like, you gotta make the investment, apply the stuff, and then...
Well, the 10 G's is just access.
Exactly.
The investment is the time and paying attention. And so I just like knew I didn't want to live the way I was living, and I had to figure it out.
100%.
But yeah, dude, it's like in retrospect, it's nuts.
That's the thing that like just takes you, like flips the switch from like freelancer, kind of scrape
to business owner.
To like, I'm a business
I remember like, I don't know if it was 6 months in or 9 or maybe 12 max. I think I was doing like 50K a month at the time, and I remember sitting with my mom talking to her about the program and how it changed everything, and like I think about the ROI of the 10K. Like I still feel like the money I make today is ROI from the 10K.
That's crazy.
That I spent, right? And when I'm telling my mom this, I was like, I'm listening to the words I'm saying. I'm like, Mom, I sound like I'm in a cult. because I was like just so bought in. You know what I mean?
That's so funny.
And so, but yeah, dude, it was just like what I needed at the time.
It's fun when when I broke this stuff down to my pops, because I had a job in the federal government, mind you. So it's not any old 9 to 5. It is like the most structured, stable, and like I'm so thankful for it now that I hated it so much, and like I had such a job that I hated so much, and like I had all these arbitrary rules, like you're talking about, all this bullshit. I'm so thankful for it now, because if I had a job that I even kind of semi-liked,
You would still be there.
I'd still be
That's
there.
how they trap you, bro.
100%. So I'm glad that I hated it so much. I'm thankful for it. But then I remember telling my pops and like kind of sitting him down, like having some whiskey, and it's like, hey, so like I'm leaving this thing, and I'm moving to Colombia, and like I don't know what I'm gonna do with my house. I might try to rent it out or something, and I'm just gonna fuck off. So he just looks at me dumbfounded, like Indian father, drives a bus, just like worked his ass off, immigrant, like, you know what I mean?
What did he say? What if it doesn't work out?
Wow, he was like, you're an idiot. Like that's so risky. Like, why would you take such a big risk? Keep the job, do whatever little side hustle, because I started a media company, whatever the fuck that means. I have no idea what that means now. But I started a media company. This was before I met Jamie, a couple years before. That's how I actually met Tony, one of our clients, right? And Tony actually basically was one of the people who springboarded the business, because he came to me with this one deal with the Ottawa police, like where we're from, the police department. COVID had just started. This is the beginning of COVID, and the police still got to train, but the gyms are closed. So who do they go to? Tony's got to connect in the police department. Tony calls me. He's like, hey, bro, you do videos, right? You've seen from this podcast setup process that I do not do videos. I'm like, yeah, of course I do videos. What do you need? He's like, okay, cool. We're going to get on a call. Boom, I'm getting thrown on my first sales call. I've never been on, I don't even know what a sales call is. I'm on, Tony throws me to the sharks. He's like, yeah, Deep, tell him what you're going to do with the videos. I'm like, yeah, we record multimedia content. I had no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just like, yeah, going to film Tony working out. It's going to be great for the constables, da-da-da. Tony calls me the next day. He's like, okay, we got the deal, but like, you got to build a website. You build websites, right? I knew you build websites. I'm like,
I do now.
Never built websites in my life, but of course I do. So I just got good at finding people who could do the thing, while I was just good at, and so, kind of relating that back to then when I did make the leap and finally leave that job, because I worked that while, and then after I met Jamie, and then we started this new thing and kind of let go of the other thing and whatnot. But I just remember just speaking to my father and my mother and just being like, guys, like, this is going to sound like absolutely ridiculous, but I just have so much faith and belief in my heart that like, I'm going to make this investment in myself and my company, and it's going to pay off.
Well, like Jim Rohn, he's like famous dude. He has this quote. He says like, it's all risky, and he has this whole spiel about it. But it's like, to his point, it's like, if you do it, it's risky. If you don't do it, it's risky in a different way. But that's true for all things. And so his whole thing is like, it's all risky. It's just like you choose the risk.
Yeah, I've always said like the real risk is taking none.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like if you actually do view it as a risk, you're gonna go into it kind of like you gotta go all in. And so, that's what took me a long time to figure out. But then a really big part of that, because now I'm in business at this point, right? In business, I have one fucking contract, and mind you, it's good money for me. It's more than I'm making on my job, so I'm like interested. I'm like, how do I get more of these? I don't know how many police departments are there in Canada. I'm starting to think like the gears are turning, but I didn't have a business. That's the real truth.
Right, just like I didn't at the beginning.
Exactly, but I had the Canadian equivalent of. LLC, like I incorporated the company, I got an accountant, I did all the things, I built my website. Like, I was like, I did
all the things except for clients.
All the things except for learning how to get more business, right? So the second go around, Deep Social Brands we're running with Jamie, I'm so over-indexing the other way, and I invested in that first year of business. I invested over $30,000 to $40,000 in like courses, coaching, that kind of stuff, and it scared the shit out of me, dude. I remember getting on like the similar call, like sales call, or actually it was actually an email exchange. Had already had the call, but I'm like, I need to think about it. And I go to this email exchange, get the price, and you're gonna fucking die. $1,500 to get into this like one of these Twitter bros like coaching program things where a bunch of other Twitter killers are in there, and like $1,500 like and USD. So like I'm Canadian, so I'm like tripping. I got like $1,500 in my bank, total. And so I remember it was such a like mindset shift. But when the thing that they got me to close, they're like, well, we don't think that you're ready to make this decision right now. And I was like, well, why? It's like, you're asking for discounts. You're asking, well, can I start next month? I was the worst type of client, right? I was asking for, can you charge me in CAD instead of USD for the, like all this bullshit. When they're just like, dude, just make the decision. Like, what if you're the type of person who's gonna make the decision to grow your business, you're gonna do this. And like now looking back on it, it's like, as much as that might sound like a sales trick or this, that, and the other thing, it's true.
No, it is a trick, but it is true.
It is a trick, but it is true.
You know, it's so true, dude. Like we deal with that on the phone still. When I was selling more consulting stuff than agency services, we would have to use that all the time, because it's like the whole mindset of buying is completely the wrong, like the mindset in which they're in is completely wrong mindset. Like if you're actually a boss, act like a boss. You know, even like now, dude, in retrospect, I was embarrassed. Like now, so even like when I teamed up with you guys, I was one call close. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't give a shit.
I wanted to bring that up, but you brought it up.
I was just like, I knew I need this because I've been looking for so long. Again, I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs, they don't have self-awareness, and they don't really have, they're not very sophisticated, and there's a lot of ego. Whereas for me, I'm like, I don't care about ego. It's just never really done it for me. And maybe I'm not the most sophisticated, but I know at this stage, I like know what I'm looking for. So I have like sophistication from that standpoint. And so I've been looking for a unicorn like you guys from like literally 4 months. And then finally, once I found you, I was like, I almost didn't even care for the phone call. I just wanted to meet. I would have just closed up in an email.
That's crazy.
You know, I just knew it. I knew I needed it. And maybe you guys weren't the right fit, but I'll figure that out later. I just have to get going. So now it's like, in retrospect, it's like, damn, I'm embarrassed I did 2 call close with Cole for Traffic and Funnels. So I don't know, it's just like the growth.
But that's the growth. That's like, you really hit the nail on the head there. It's like what type of person are you? And like, you know, you're probably even going to look back, you know, 10, 15 years from now on like some of the decision-making criteria that you have now that you think is more sophisticated.
Well, dude, even shit from like 8 months ago, I'm like, damn, dude, like that's antiquated, or I was completely wrong, or just like being a little bitch.
It's crazy, man. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk, you know, more specifically about your agency right now as it is, because you guys are doing numbers. You're going to be too humble to admit it, but
no, we're not doing that good.
You know, you guys are doing very well, and you could, if you'd like, you could share kind of like what you're on track for revenues for this year. But I think the audience would be, you know, very interested in hearing your perspective on, you know, because you're one of the GOATs in this industry, even though you won't say it. You're the GOAT, man. You're the email marketing GOAT. Talk about your agency a little bit and share some numbers if you'd like.
Yeah. So I'll talk about the maturation of the business a little bit, because it's gone through a few different stages, and I think it'll be helpful for listeners, and like everything's 20/20 in hindsight, right? So when I started, I was doing freelancing stuff. Then I started to like build it as an agency. Little by little, right? Very humble beginnings. Again, I had limiting beliefs. I didn't know what was possible at the time. $30K a month was like, dude, that's Mecca, right? And so then when I got into Traffic and Funnels, and I started to experience some of the like operational friction that comes with the growing piece on the marketing side and sales side and buying ads and costs and fulfillment, all those things. Because I was literally just like figuring out as I went, like what I did at the time, which was very in the moment, all the rage was this like sort of done with you consulting program. So I essentially productized my IP that we fulfilled on the agency side. Okay. And I was like, these business owners that are doing under 80K a month in sales, I actually firmly believe this today in my heart of hearts, that they're much better suited to run their email and text message themselves because it's so close to the heartbeat of the business. And no matter what happens, if they know how to do that, they'll always be able to make money for themselves. And so it became like very mission oriented for me. Like, yeah, I can be an agency and serve you, but at the end of the day, there's a limited bandwidth. So I prioritized all my IP, and so I knew that like I could just continue doing the agency stuff, but it's inevitable that they're going to leave at some point because that's just how it works in the agency world. Like the grass is always greener, or whatever happens.
People are gonna find a way. You can get them insane results,
and
they'll still
for whatever reason. And so I was like, that was part of my thesis. I was like, yeah, you're how many, like, what agency pain do you already have? Yeah. Would you like to not have that again? Like, let me show you how to do this so you can control it. And then later, if you choose to hire an agency, at least you know how to do it from a position of like, you've done this before, if you're being bullshitted, etc. Mm-hmm. And so we were reasonably successful selling that sort of offer, but it's inherently flawed in that fundamentally, like, even if it's the best thing for them, no one wants to do it. No one's a copywriter, no one's a designer, you know what I mean, these entrepreneurs. And then from a technical standpoint, a new tool, like the learning curve is straight up. There's a lot of like fear baked into the offer, like, oh, what if I can't write well? Or like, I'm not a good designer. So there's a lot of friction. So looking back, I'm like, wow, we were actually really good at selling that offer considering all the friction that we had to go through to get people over the hump.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for entrepreneurs, like they're always busy, right? Or these store owners or whatever, there's always some shit that comes up. And for whatever reason, the marketing, which is actually the lifeblood and the oxygen for the business to create sales, for some reason, always gets put by the wayside or gets pushed down the ladder, and their attention goes to like whatever the burning issue is, like the fulfillment or customer service, which is very low leverage, right? Which is very low leverage stuff. And so if anything, they should pay someone whatever, $20, $15 an hour to do that stuff and focus on the marketing because that's what I will actually grow the business, but they don't look at it like that. So I was like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years of selling the consulting offer, and I turned away so much agency business, dude, just because I was like, I don't want an agency, I want this consulting business again.
Well, why? Did you think that it's more scalable?
It was, well, one, the mission piece. Like, I could keep selling you the crack for the agency stuff, but it doesn't really help you, and I don't want to just be the agent. I just want to just perpetuate the bullshit that all these people have to deal with. Right. And I thought I was doing the right thing, but they didn't ultimately want what was best for them, like collectively. And so I was just like, and it was higher leverage. Like we could serve a lot more people. And so like I was just all in. And again, at the time, it was all the rage, and it was like the model. And so I turned away a lot of agency business because I didn't want the overhead and the deal with all the people. Like this I could do, and it'd be a team of 5 or 6. But the agency, it's like it requires a lot more, right? And so at the end of the day, like this was actually last year. I was like, we're just like beating our head against the wall, like trying to get. I had the ceiling of like, I don't know, 8 or 9 clients a month, maybe 11. I could never break it, and I'm like, this is driving me crazy. And so no matter what I did, spend more money on ads and change up like how we position it, structure the offer a little bit differently. Nothing changed. And so I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. Like the market wants agency. They don't want to do it. Like at this point, like the joke's on me if I don't just accept that as inevitable and focus on the agency. And ultimately that's what I did. I said, screw it. And just went all in on agency at that point. So in retrospect, if I would have either not done that offer or taken the agency clients at the time, starting in like 2019, or maybe early 20, I would have been much farther. I would already be at 500 to 800K a month right now, And so it's just like one of those things, just like comes with trying different shit and everything. Yeah. But like, so at times I kick myself. I'm like, fuck, dude. Like I was so stupid. But also, it's just like, it is what it is.
That's just part of the game, though, man. You kind of fell a bunch of times on the way, this journey, but like kind of always found a way to fall forward. From 24K, what was it called?
24K gold.
24K gold. Like,
it rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, man. It's clean. And like all these other kind of little like data points where like you try something and it's like, nah.
Well, most people like. I just think that just like being a business owner, entrepreneur, is just like in my blood. Mm-hmm. It's just like who I am. Like,
would you say you're a very intuitive person?
I mean, I like to think so.
Yeah. Because like that's kind of the sense that I get, like, for your ability to pivot that many times and then to land on the thing that
Well, like it's all
still was like needed tweaking. And like,
dude, and this is just like 8 months ago that I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go in all in the agency. I'll just accept it for what it is and keep it moving. It does not forever. It's not my, it doesn't have to be like, the agency doesn't have to be my identity.
Cool.
And it's just like, you know, people don't want what's best for them. It's like who am I?
What are you gonna do about
Like they don't listen to their doctor either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, damn, that's cool, man. Because it sounds like you've kind of removed any and all ego from that equation, and it's just like what's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So what's kind of like the next iteration then for the agency?
So I made a deal with when I went all in on when I decided to go all in on the agency business pre-consulting, like when I jumped in traffic and funnels, it was like I had an e-com business at the time also selling supplements like nootropics, like
Oh yeah.
and it was all self-funded. But I was playing that game, that e-com game, as if I had raised money, but I didn't. So the churn wasn't keeping up with the acquisition wasn't keeping up with the churn. So it was like I would get some and I would lose some. It was just flat, but I couldn't live off of it. And my dad's like, dude, you need to pick one thing. You have 1 foot on the dock, 1 foot on the boat.
Yeah.
Go in on one, and don't even think about anything else until that one thing is in a place where it can operate virtually without you.
That's one
And
thing
so-
that I've had to learn the hard way.
It's hard, man. And so like I'm on Twitter, there's always like some new cool shiny thing. I'm like, oh, that's a sick idea. Is it better than the idea I'm working on? And then it would take time, effort, resources, brain power away from the thing.
Shiny object syndrome.
Dude, it's the worst. So I was like, you know what, Dad, you're right. So I committed to myself, like I'm not doing anything else until this is in a place where it converts. I've earned the privilege to step out and do other stuff. And so but that time is like actually like right now. And I could have done it last year. I could have made the argument or whatever. But now I actually feel confident. Like opportunities come my way, whatever it means, e-com or software or real estate or whatever. I can like take the time to go sink my teeth into that and know that the business will be okay. And this is just on my timeline. Like that's the other piece that's
How many employees do you have?
now I think we have like 15.
15. That's crazy, man. Good.
Yeah, I wanted 0, remember?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a really, really unique journey, man. Because like now, you kind of have set it up so that this is a company that can run without you.
For the most part.
Pretty much can be built to sell. Like I don't know if you've read that book, but like I recently listened to it. I didn't read it, so fucking stacking tasks and shit. But I think it's one of those things that's really changed my frame of reference of what I even think an agency can be, because I've kind of always thought that, well, Jamie and I are always gonna have to be a part of it. How would it run without us? Like we're the guys, right? But that's coming from such a place of ego.
Yeah.
Like, wait, why? Like, there's way smarter people out there. I mean, I learned that very early on. I don't make videos. I don't make websites. There's way smarter people out even running the business than I could ever be. We're just scrambling. We're just figuring it out every day, which is fine.
Where that I think about it is like I just want to have the optionality to go whichever way. If that means I still want to be doing this, dope. Yeah. If that means I want to back out, hire a GM or someone to operate it, dope. If I want to sell it, dope. But like, it's like it's easy to get like caught up in all the noise out there. Like, oh, it has to be fast, or you have to have this many employees, you have to be doing this much revenue per month, or you have to be all in all the time, or whatever. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, it just comes back to like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
And so if I just want to be in a position where I can be as involved as I want or not, and choose that path when I decide to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, 100%.
And so like it's again a lot. I just think it's a self-awareness thing more, and like checking the ego.
So if you could go back and then tell 20-year-old
Phil
Rivers,
I would just learn how to market and sell.
Market and sell.
That's it. Like, dude, I didn't know how to sell when I started selling this. I was terrible. And Cole critiqued one of my calls, like early on, and he's like, he sent me a recording of his critique, and he's on the recording. He's like, dude, So I want to tell you, like, this is going to hurt. Like, this is going to be hard to listen to, but just get through it because you'll come out stronger the other way. And, like, literally after I listened to that call, my just production, like, 10x'd from a closing standpoint. So it's just like, it's just little things, dude. But a
lot of people's egos couldn't handle that, even listening.
No, and I'm not, like, perfect, you know, but it's just like, I don't care. Like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not the smartest. I'm just like, but I'm resourceful enough to figure it out. And I just have the will. And so I just don't care about what someone else is doing or their opinions. You know, I have boys that are doing, like, I thought, I'm smarter than them or whatever, and then they're farther along than me. It's just like, it is what it is. I'm not competing with you. It's just like they're running their own race, and I happen to know them.
I love one thing that you just talked about before was the optionality. That's one of my favorite words. Is to always have those different options available and be able to assess at whatever checkpoints or whatever that hey, I can do this or I can do that or I can do that. One important thing, that obviously we didn't touch on too much in this podcast is that you're a family man, Phil. So how does that play into kind of some of this optionality moving forward? Do you want to be spending more time with your growing family? Do you want to sink your teeth in another business? Like, what's next? What do you want?
I don't know, man. Family's the most important. It's so funny because, like, I never wanted to be married or have a baby, and now I have both, and a new one on the way.
Congratulations, by the way, man.
Thank you, man. And so, like, in terms of, I just love business, and so, like, right now I look like, I think about it like I'm just getting started. Yep. Like, now this is in a place where it's like actually a real business. It has defensibility. It has systems and processes from a marketing, selling, fulfillment standpoint. Yeah. And I'm like, I learned so much, and I wish I learned this shit 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But again, it is what it is. And so now it's just like, okay, now how do I take this and level up to the next level? And whether that be buying something, just like taking the cash flow from this and buying real estate. That's always been things I wanted to do, but again, I made the commitment. Yeah. Before. I was like, so now I'm like actually on the precipice of it, like honoring the commitment I made to myself. So there's no slowing down from a business standpoint. I really want to go faster and do more, but not too much where it's just like, it owns me. But I also I live in the country, so I'm like with my wife literally all day and see my daughter every morning, every night. So I don't look at it like, I'm really trying to like design our lifestyle so that whether we're upstate or we decide to like go to Florida or go to Colombia, I have the optionality to do that, like not tied to anything. And it's not just one business unit, but multiple business units generating cash flow, and just like more so think about it from the standpoint of like allocating capital, which I'm by no means an expert at all. I'm like a total noob, but it's like, how do I have assets that generate cash flow, and then what do I do with it? Right. So that's like the next thing that I'm just like super interested in and intrigued by, and just like want to dive in head first, because like that's like, I don't know, I think about it, it's just like the next level. But if I have the assets pumping the cash flow, then I'd really have the optionality to do whatever, whenever, personally or with family business. And so again, I guess it all just, that's the fucking word of the pod is optionality.
Optionality. That's what we're going to call this thing, man. One kind of last big topic I really want to discuss before we get out of here. You've got this digital real estate asset that you're building as well. I want to talk about what's the role of Twitter and social media been in your business.
Yeah. So originally, I was just like, I've always been like uncomfortable on the internet. Like, I'm just a very private dude. Like, I don't never posted on Instagram. I don't like flexing. It's just not in my nature. You know what I mean? So like, there's just like always been like a sort of, I don't want to say a disconnect, but I also felt like sort of like a fraud to myself doing the stuff on the internet just because it's not who I am. Yeah. And then when I started the agency and it started growing, like I needed to do ads. That was the first thing I didn't do any organic. And I tried doing it without my face being in it, but it didn't go very well. Then I was like, if I really want this business to be what it can be, I have to turn the camera around. And so I just like, another thing my dad told me is like, dude, you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's because the only growth comes from discomfort. If you think about it in the gym, like you're moving weight, it's hard, you're sore after, that's discomfort. And then the only way you get stronger. So I was like, True, pops, like right again.
Yeah.
And so
Your pops is a big mentor for you? Like you always run a lot of big decisions?
I think so. Like I'm very independent and stuff, so I could probably get more out of him than I do because I'm just so like proud. Yeah, I'm just like proud and want to figure it out. But he always has like wisdom nuggets, you know. And so so then I had to turn the camera around, so it's like. Then I just got kind of used to it. Even it's still uncomfortable now, like when I do the stuff for you guys. But it just is what it is. It's necessary at this point. And most people aren't willing to do it. Like 99% of people on these platforms just consume. They never post.
Very true.
And so it's just like, again, another thing my dad said was it's all about increasing your chances of getting struck by lightning. So the more times I do it, it just increases the likelihood of good things happening.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, again, what's the risk? The risk is if I don't do it, I have a very low ceiling. The risk if I do it, I'm uncomfortable, but that'll eventually wear off, and the sky's the limit.
100%, man.
Now, from a content standpoint, first it started with ads, and I didn't care about organic. And again, in retrospect, I'd go back and change that entirely and really focus on organic 3 years ago. And
because longer term.
Yeah, and I would be in a much different position now, or just much farther along. But so now it's just like, last year I was like, I'll do Twitter because I don't need video. And stuff, and I was like, if I can get 2 clients from Twitter in the first 2 months, I'll keep going. So originally I was doing it from the perspective of like client acquisition. And I told Jimmy about this when he and I met in Florida. And then maybe 6 months in, maybe around like the end of the year last year, I was just like, client acquisition was smooth from it, but I was starting to grow my follower count, and I would think I was like around 10K at the time-ish. Maybe this is Jan, Feb, I don't remember. But anyways, once I hit 10K, it was like things changed, like the perception of me changed, like how people would hit me up, what they would hit me up about. And then I was just like, yo, this is like, it was a weird thing. And like, I don't consider myself an influencer.
You've ascended into the money Twitter, like.
But just like how people perceive me is like, I have cachet. And so now it's just like, I was like, yo, this is even more powerful from a like branding standpoint and just positioning and equity with the market broadly. And I'll take the client acquisition stuff, but change my whole perspective of like, I'm just going long tail brand, equity building, and who knows what opportunities come down the pipe from a business standpoint.
That's the Hormozi model, man. I mean,
he's a fucking OG. Like, that dude's such a baller. Like,
no, but dude, you're in the same conversation. I genuinely believe that because, you know, you are investing in this thing for the long term. You've already got the successful business that seems pretty systemized. You know, we gotta perform better. We gotta get you on like two, 3 TikToks to blow up and stuff. But then the opportunities are gonna be endless, and it kind of leads back into that optionality thing that you were talking about, where you're like, well, you know what, like I might just do more podcasts, or you know,
like I don't know.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're gonna do with that attention, but you just know that it's valuable and it's worth investing.
And I don't know what's gonna come of it yet, but like I do know, I saw what Twitter did. And so now, like with you guys, I was like, I need video stuff, and I wanted to, TikTok is the future. I want to do TikTok, and like, admittedly, I haven't grown like I thought I would. But it's like, again, it's not an ego thing. I want it just from an equity standpoint and reach standpoint because it increases the probability of getting struck by lightning.
100%.
And so it's just like, yo, it's not there. A lot of people I think would have thrown in the towel already because there's ego. Like, oh, like I only have 3K now. Oh shit. And it's like, dude, whatever. Like, it's not about this, I don't know, 5 months we've been doing it, 4 months. It's just like 4 months is a blip on the radar for the next 20 years. So it's like, exactly. I don't even care.
And that's why, like, I'm not making this up. I genuinely talk about this with the team all the time. I'm like, and you know, I love all my clients equally, right? But Phil Rivers is one of my favorite clients because, you know, you just see it. From the beginning, from that first interaction that we had to now, you know, maybe we don't have some of the insane numbers that we, you know, have for some of our other clients with you. I just know that it's going to catch up and then pass a lot of other people because you have, you just have this very long-term view on like, yeah, this will succeed.
I think it comes back to like playing baseball, like sports, and it's just like baseball is a game of failure. Like if you're batting 300, you fail 70% of the time. But you're very good at 300. And so I just look at it as just like, it's all, like a season is long, like it's not a sprint. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, you stick around, you keep taking swings, you're gonna get the knock. You're gonna hit the home run sooner or later. So it's just like, It's just a matter of time. Again, stacking the deck to increase the chances of getting struck by lightning, and eventually it's going to hit.
Dude, I don't think there's a better way to end this podcast, brother. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for coming on the It's Not That Deep podcast.
Next time we'll do it in Colombia.
100%, or wherever we're at.
It did get pretty deep though.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Doug.